Hello and welcome once again to Serendipity, the weekly program we have for kids in kindergarten through 5th grade. I'm Mrs. Wheelis and I'm one of the children's librarians at the Summit Free Public Library. Today's program is entitled Run, Hide, Abiyoyo is Back. And it's a program about giants, which is a lot of fun. You're going to hear songs and stories about giants, including the story Abiyoyo and Jack the Giant Chaser, and maybe even one more. So I'm glad you're listening today. Fee-fi-fo-fum, fee-fi-fo-fum, I see a giant, so we all better run. I see a giant coming over yonder, so we all better run. Well, you can read about Jack and the Beanstalk. You can read about Finn McCool. You can read about Finn's giant wife Una, who saved her husband too. All giants have big feet. They like to brag and they're not very neat. Get ready, people, to retreat. Fee-fi-fo-fum, fee-fi-fo-fum, I see a giant, so we all better run. I see a giant coming over yonder, so we all better run. Well, you can read about the giant Goliath. You can read about Paul Bunyan too. You can read about the giant Shrek and Aladdin's genie too. All giants are quite tall. They'd be great at basketball. Get ready to hide when you hear their frightening call. Fee-fi-fo-fum, fee-fi-fo-fum, I see a giant, so we all better run. I see a giant coming over yonder, so we all better run. One day, Jack and his hound dog went to town, and they saw that a lot of people were gathered in front of the general store. He wondered what they were all talking about, so he went up to them and started bragging like he usually did, always bragging about himself, how strong he was, how he could do anything. And the people listened to him, and the mayor started talking. The mayor said he got everybody quiet so he could make a speech. He called Jack up to the steps of the store and said, "Jack, since you've been gone, we've had nothing but trouble. It seems this old giant has taken to living up on Balsam Mountain, and he don't take too kindly to us down here. Last week, he come off the mountain and stole 3 of my best milk cows," shouted Old Man Ward. "He stomped my whole field of corn and ruined half the rhubarb too," yelled Cousin Harmon. "You ought to see how he pushed over my barn," exclaimed Miss Josephine. "None of us has had any peace for weeks." The mayor hooked his arm around Jack's shoulders and declared, "What we need is a giant chaser. And Jack, I believe you are just the one for the job." With that, Jack's neighbors and kinfolk hooped and hollered and slapped poor old Jack on the back. Jack wasn't so sure he was cut out to deal with giants, but since everybody thought he was a hero, he figured he'd have to try and act like one. The next morning, Jack got up bright and early and set off to Balsam Mountain to find that giant. When he got up there, the giant wasn't home. So Jack set himself down bold as you please on the front porch to wait for him. Wasn't long before the giant appeared over the ridge carrying Miss Palmer's 2 prize pigs, one in each hand. "Howdy," said Jack. "Howdy yourself," replied the giant as he set the pigs down. "What you doing settling on my front porch, little man?" "I'm hunting a giant. Have you seen one around here?" "Oh, seen one? Don't you know I am one?" Jack looked that giant over and said, "I don't know. Most of the giants I've seen are lots bigger than you, but I reckon you're the one I'm aiming to see." The giant just busted out laughing. "What makes you think you're a match for me, little man?" Jack looked surprised. "Well, my city and my town and the mayor sent me up here to tell you you've got to stop bothering them, turning over their barns and stepping all over their corn and their rhubarb, and that's what I've come here to do." Now, the giant said, "You must be tougher than you look, Jack. Before we commenced to fighting, how'd you like to have something to eat?" "Well, that's right neighborly," said Jack. "I reckon I can wait till this afternoon to take care of you." Now that old giant aimed to find out just how tough Jack was. So he went inside and got 2 huge buckets. "Let's go down to the creek and fetch up some water to cook with, Jack," said the giant. Now Jack knew there was no way he could even pick up the 2 buckets, much less lug them up the hill full of water, but he had himself an idea. When they got to the creek, Jack waded out into the middle and reached down to the bottom. "What are you doing there, Jack?" asked the giant. "Well," said Jack, "I'm a-fixin' to grab hold of the creek so I can drag it up to your front door. No sense carrying just a little bit of water up there." "Whoa there, Jack. I don't want the creek that close to my house. It might flood me out one day, and just grab one of these buckets and we'll be done." "Not me," said Jack. "If I can't carry the creek, I'll not be caught carrying a little bit of water. What if my kinfolk saw me?" So the giant grabbed up both of those buckets himself and toted them up the hill to the cabin. After he got dinner started, the giant said to Jack, "Let's go outside and play a little mummelty-peg while the greens are cooking." "All right by me," said Jack. They went outside and the giant pulled out his pocket knife and threw it clear across the yard and straight into the ground. "Your turn, little man." The object of the game was to see who could throw it the furthest. Jack walked over to the knife and sized it up. It was nearly as tall as himself, and probably it weighed 150 pounds. "There's no way I can pull this out of the ground, much less throw it," Jack was thinking to himself. Didn't take Jack long, though, to come up with an idea. Looking out across the valley and the far mountains, Jack hollered, "Hey, Uncle!" "Who you calling Uncle?" roared the giant. "I ain't your kin." "I ain't talking to you," said Jack. "I'm yelling to my uncle who lives on the far side of those mountains. He could use a good knife like this one, so I figured I'd just toss it over to him." "Hold on there, Jack. That's my good knife. I'm not ready to part with it. You just toss it right here in the yard." "Well," said Jack, "if I can't throw it where I please, I don't want to throw it at all. What if my kin saw me?" And he stomped into the cabin. The giant went inside too and dished up 2 plates of cornbread, greens, and ham. Then he and Jack sat down to eat. While they were eating, Jack began cocking his head to one side and glancing out the window. He kept doing it until he started to make the giant kind of nervous. "What you looking at?" asked the giant. "Nothing," replied Jack. I'm just looking to see what I can see. Well, cut it out, said the giant. You're starting to rile me. They kept on eating, and all the while Jack's eyes were glued to the window. Once he muttered out of the side of his mouth, "Yeehaw, here they come." "What do you see out that window, little man?" growled the giant. "Oh, it's nothing," snickered Jack. "But if I was you, I'd hurry up and finish my dinner." "Now hold your horses," cried the giant. "First, you better tell me what you spied out that window." "Oh, it's nothing, I tell you," laughed Jack. "Nothing but my daddy, my 2 big brothers, and about 2 dozen of my other kinfolk." Now the giant remembered that Jack said he was the smallest one in his family, and the giant got this worried, bug-eyed look on his face. "Land's sake, if all of them catch up with me at once, I'm in trouble. You gotta hide me, little man." Jack looked over that giant and said, "Now why would I want to do that?" "Oh, please, don't let 'em catch me. I'll leave this valley and you'll never see me again." "Well, I don't know. You promise me you won't be back?" "Oh, I promise, I promise." Jack peered around the room and then told the giant, "Quick, jump into your big old barrel over there in the corner, and I'll do what I can to get shed of 'em." It took some doing, but after a lot of shoving and squeezing, the giant was finally crammed into the barrel, and Jack slammed the lid on it as tightly as he could. Then Jack began making all kinds of commotion in the cabin, pretending like his kinfolks were really there. He turned over chairs, threw pots and pans around, and dumped drawers in the floor. All the while he was hollering and screeching like 20 men. Then Jack shook the giant's barrel real hard and shouted, "He ain't here, I tell ya! There ain't no giants in this cabin!" Finally, Jack rolled the barrel to the door and shoved it out onto the porch. Jack ran after it as it bounced and bumped all the way down the mountain until smack it hit a tree. Out crawled the giant. "I'm much obliged to you, little man. You saved me from trouble," said the giant, rubbing the bump on his head. "Oh, it was nothing," Jack told him. "Now you better hightail it out of here before those boys come back a-looking for you." The giant bolted across the creek, over the ridge, and past the state line. And that was the last Jack, or anybody in those parts, ever saw of the bothersome creature. And that is the story of Jack, the Giant Chaser. When I was growing up, we used to play a game. Maybe you've played it too. They made you stand behind an imaginary line, the leader far away from you. Then one at a time, they called out your name, told you what to do, nobody the same. We call the game playing giant steps. Maybe you've played it too. Get ready. If you don't say, Mother may I, everybody's gonna laugh and tease, and they'll make you go all the way back, no matter how you beg and plead. Well, I hated when my sister was the leader, 'cause she only gave me inchworm crawls when I wanted to twirl like a butterfly girl and leap on my lioness paws. So I started to steal closer to win, when I thought she wasn't looking, but she turned with a grin. Hey, I saw you there stealing those giant steps. You have to go all the way back. But if you don't say, Mother may I, everybody's gonna laugh and tease, and they'll make you go all the way back, no matter how you beg and plead. to do, nobody the same. We call the game playing giant steps. Maybe you played it too. But if you don't say, Mother, may I, everybody's gonna laugh and tease, and they'll make you go all the way back, no matter how you beg and plead. When I was growing up, we used to play a game. Maybe you played it too. Once there was a boy who lived with his father in a small town. Now the boy had a ukulele. It was something like the ukulele I've got right here. And the boy loved to play his ukulele. Which would have been fine, but he liked to play it all the time. He played it morning, noon, and night, and he played it anywhere he wanted to play it. In the barber shop, in the post office, in the stores, in offices, anywhere you wanted to play it, he'd be playing that ukulele. And people began to get tired of it. Now the same boy had a father who was a magician. He had a magic wand, and if he touched something, zip zip, the thing would disappear. Now that wouldn't be so bad, but the father was also a practical joker. He liked to play tricks on people. So if a man was real tired after working all day and he was just getting ready to sit down in a nice comfortable chair, the magician would take out his magic wand, touch the chair, and zip zip, the chair would disappear and the man would fall right on the floor. Well, you can imagine the man on the floor didn't think it was all that funny. Well, sometimes a woman would be just getting ready to drink a nice glass of iced tea, and she'd be all dressed up with a really pretty dress on, and the magician would whip out his magic wand, touch the glass, and zip zip, the glass would disappear and the iced tea would go all over the lady's pretty dress. You can imagine. People got tired of the magician and his practical jokes and his son with the constant playing of the ukulele. So they made the two of them live outside the town. Now, in those days, they used to tell stories. They used to tell stories about a giant called Abiyoyo. They said the giant was so tall and that he used to come round but hadn't been there in a long time. They said he had big feet and long arms and long fingernails. Well, the boy heard the stories, but he didn't believe them. He thought they were fun to listen to anyway. One morning, the boy woke up before his father did. He went over, just waking up, and looked out the window, and he saw this huge shadow coming toward the house. It was huge, and he looked closely, and he thought to himself, oh no, Abiyoyo must be a true story, and this must be Abiyoyo coming back. And he looks like he's really hungry. Now the reason the boy thought that was because Abiyoyo walked into a sheep pasture, picked up a whole sheep, gulped it down, one bite. Then he walked into a cow pasture, picked up a whole cow, one bite. He came closer and closer to the house, so the boy ran and woke up his dad. Wake up, father, he said, wake up, hurry, Abiyoyo is here. So the father looked out the window and said, son, I believe you're right. I believe that is Abiyoyo. Let me get my magic wand. If I could get him to lie down, I could make him disappear. Ah, that gives me an idea, father. Get your magic wand and I'll get my ukulele. So the two of them ran right up to where Abiyoyo was standing. He looked down at these two little tiny people, and they looked way up at him. Now he had messy old hair because he never combed it. He had ugly, dirty old teeth because he never brushed them. He had long old fingernails because he never cut them. And yes, he had stinky old feet because he never washed them. But as Abiyoyo was just reaching out to grab the boy and his father, the boy took out his ukulele and started to play. Started reaching out for them. Instead, he had a big smile on his face, and he started clapping in rhythm to the music, and he started trying to sing along because he had never heard a song about himself before, and it made him feel very proud. And so he tried to sing along. Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo. Play a little faster, maybe you'd like to dance. So he started to play faster, and the giant danced faster and faster. Abiyoyo, 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 Abiyoyo. Now the giant danced faster and faster, and he was getting out of breath, and he was trying to sing at the same time as he was dancing, as the music got faster and faster. Abiyoyo, 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 Abiyoyo. And he fell down on the ground. Well, the magician took out his magic wand, touched him, and zip zip, Abiyoyo disappeared. Well, all the people of the town came running out toward them, and they said, "Hooray, hooray, you're our heroes. You've saved our town from the giant Abiyoyo." And they picked the boy and his father up and carried them like heroes on their shoulders. And they said, "Come on back to town. We miss you. Bring your magic wand and your old tricks, and bring your ukulele." And as they all went back into town, everybody was singing, "Abiyoyo, Abiyoyo, 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 Abiyoyo." It's a fun song to sing. Sing with me. That story is by Pete Seeger. The next book is one of my favorites. It's entitled Rude Giants, and story and pictures are by Audrey Wood. I like it because, one of the reasons I like it is because the heroine is little and the story is very funny. Long ago, Beatrix the butter maid and her best friend Gerda the cow lived in a cozy cottage in a happy valley. Every morning after tea, Beatrix served Gerda the freshest yellow hay, and Gerda gave Beatrix the sweetest milk to make into butter and sell at the market. The girl and the cow never had a care in the world until one day, 2 rude giants came over the mountains and moved into the empty castle on the hill. The rude giants were clumsy, loud, and selfish. They trampled the flowers, quarreled until the birds stopped singing, and stole whatever they wanted from whomever they pleased. What will those rude giants do next? The villagers wondered. But life must go on, giants or not. So, on market day, as usual, Beatrix the butter maid and Gerda the cow set off for the market to sell their butter. They hadn't traveled far when a great hand reached down and scooped Gerda up into the sky. "Yum!" the giantess bellowed. "Food!" Beatrix jumped onto one of the giant's shoes and held on tight. Thump, thump, thump. In 3 giant steps, the giantess returned to the castle and tossed Gerda onto a table before her husband. Quickly, the butter maid climbed up the table leg and pulled herself onto the top. "Stop!" Beatrix exclaimed. "You can't eat the finest cow in all the land." "Huh?" the rude giant said. "Why not?" "Because," the butter maid answered, "you don't know how to make her taste delicious." "Tell us how," the rude giant shouted. "Why, just look at this messy place," Beatrix scolded. "Everyone knows a good meal tastes better in a clean castle." "Clean?" the giant said. "What's that?" Beatrix the butter maid told the giants what to do. They swept and scrubbed, junked the junk, and put everything back in its proper place. The rude giants worked so hard they were hungrier than ever. "Cow!" they bellowed, reaching for Gerda. "We want cow!" "Moo!" Gerda said. "Stop!" Beatrix exclaimed. "How can you think about eating the finest cow in all the land if you don't have manners? Everyone knows a lack of good manners ruins a good meal." "Manners?" the rude giant shouted. "Show us manners, or we'll squish you flat." Beatrix the butter maid told the giants what to do. They learned how to speak in pleasant voices, take tiny bites, and sip, not slurp. Boom, 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 the giants' stomachs rumbled like thunder beyond the mountains. "We eat cow now," they shouted, forgetting their manners. The rude giants reached for Gerda. "Moo, moo," Gerda cried. "Not yet," Beatrix the butter maid exclaimed. "If you are going to eat the finest cow in all the land, there's still one more thing you must do to make her taste delicious." "Tell us, please," the rude giant said, trying to be polite. "Oh, please tell us." "You must make yourselves beautiful," the butter maid said. "Beautiful?" the giants exclaimed. "What's that?" "Give Gerda to me," Beatrix said, "and we will show you how." The butter maid and the cow worked together. They filled a tub with water and told the giants how to take a bubble bath. They curled and combed the giant's hair in fancy ways. Then they sewed the softest cloth into lovely outfits. "Now just look at yourselves," the butter maid said. "How could 2 beautiful giants like you, who live in a clean castle and have good manners, eat my dear friend Gerda the cow?" The giants peered into the mirror. They couldn't believe their eyes. The giantess fluttered her long eyelashes and smiled sweetly. The giant smoothed back his glistening hair and raised one giant eyebrow. "My dear," he said to his giant wife, "you look simply divine." "And you," she said to her giant husband, "look handsome indeed." "Moo," Gerda said in her sweetest voice. The giants looked at the cow. Their giant stomachs growled as they licked their giant lips. Bending down low, they whispered in the butter maid's ear, "Hungry. We are still very hungry. What are we to do?" Beatrix knew what to do. She left the castle, hurried to the village, and rang the bells. From far and near, the villagers gathered around. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, the butter maid led the villagers up the path to the giant's castle. Everyone brought something from home. With a pot of this and a jug of that, there was plenty for all. "From now on," the giant proclaimed, "we'll have a party every week." "And all our friends are invited," the giantess agreed. Now the giants were very happy. In time, they had a giant baby. Much to their surprise, the child soon grew to be ruder than they ever had been. Of course, they knew what to do. The giants sent their rude child to the finest teachers in all the land, Beatrix the butter maid and Gerda the cow. And that is the story of the rude giants. This might be a book you'd like to check out sometimes and read again. Thank you. At the end of each Serendipity program, I have a craft that you can easily do at home, tied in with the theme of the program. Now this, of course, is a drawing of a giant, and he's saying fee, fi, fo, fum, and he is Abiyoyo. So if you remember the part in the story, it said Abiyoyo had messy old hair because he never combed it, and he had long nails because he never cut them, and he had stinky old feet because he never washed them, and dirty old teeth because he never brushed them. Now, I am not a natural artist, so whenever I want to learn how to draw something for you, what I do is I go online, moms, I go online and seek or search for easy ways to draw a giant. And the information that I found was something like this, but I simplified it so that we could have it just to be even easier. Now, the first thing that I learned to do is, on your paper, draw a box. But the giant's head is going to be up here. So you're going to start the box down here. And I made it a big box because he's a big giant. All right, if you want your lines to be real straight, you could use a ruler. Now, there's the body. Now let's put the giant's head on there. The giant's head, Abiyoyo's head, is the shape of an egg, an oval. This is an awkward way to draw. Drawing like this is much better, right? Okay, there's Abiyoyo. Let's give him some little beady eyes. There's one, there's two. Let's give him some mean-looking old bushy eyebrows. Yeah, and let's give him a great big giant nose. And he's got to have a mouth that frowns and has dirty teeth. All right. Okay, now let's put a beard on him, all right? A big old messy looking beard, And the story says he had messy looking hair because he never combed it, so let's just make that hair as messy as can be, just all over the place. Now remember, your drawing can be anything you want. You don't have to do it like mine. I'm sure yours will be better than mine. All right, so we have his body and his head. Boy, that head is not great, but I'm sure you can do better. Anyway, he's got to have arms. So we're going to put the arms on either side, and it's going to be a rectangle. A rectangular box like that. Now we need one on the other side. Okay, good. Now let's put his hands coming out of the sleeves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Now he's going to need some, he can't take that jacket off unless there's an opening down the middle. And he's going to need buttons if he wants to keep it closed when the weather is cold. There we go. Now he's a big, strong giant, so we got to put some shoulders on him. So we're going to start right here and go up like that and come around like this. And those will be his shoulders. Now let's put his big feet. Now I had put shoes on him in my drawing, but let's just do some big feet without any shoes. Okay, I'm gonna do this for the first time. Okay, here's his heel, and then here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes. There's one foot, and then there's his heel, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes. Now when you finish up your drawing, you can color it any way you want to. I used crayons to color mine because I find it's easier to use crayons to color. I use markers to outline the drawing, and then crayons to color it in. So yours can be any color you want. And I made his clothes look messy and raggedy. And then I put some grass and a little tiny house so that you could see how big he is in comparison to a house. So I hope you have fun with your drawing. And if you do a drawing and you come to the library, I'm there on Tuesday mornings from 9 to 12 and on Thursdays from 3 to 6. If you happen to come at that particular time, I'd love to see your drawing. Okay, thank you so much for listening. And next week, we are going to have an Earth Day celebration. And it's going to be great fun. So I'll see you then.